Stop building products nobody wants. This is something I've said to myself plenty of times, and today we will check out how it's actually done. So, something that is really important, building products that nobody wants often starts with an idea and then followed by months of building something without going to the market, talking to users, etc. But there are plenty of ways to build products that people actually care about. And there are different ways for different use cases. First of all, an easy step is demand validation. You can do this with a landing page and waiting lists and stuff like this, or even trying some distribution already with like putting some Google ads and seeing if someone actually cares. This is ideal if you want to build a B2C product. So if you focus on consumer side. On the second hand, we have interviews, which is valuable also for consumer products, but even more required for B2B startup cases. This is what we will take a look at today. And in general, a good way is always to start with the market and with the problem. So not just sitting in your bedroom and thinking, oh, this would be a good thing, but then it actually isn't. So observing other people running into struggles, sharing problems online or something like this is definitely a better way. But the video is also not about this, but it's about interviews. So to show you quickly what it will be about, first it's quickly about identifying your ICP, your ideal customer profile, then how to reach out to your ICP and not just friends, then doing interviews the right way, which is basically the core, and then taking honest conclusions and not fooling yourself, which is often more difficult than it seems, but only the other fool themselves. I don't fool myself, of course, and everyone thinks this. So the first thing is define your ideal customer profile, and the best way to do this is to start with a problem statement and then think like, who has the problem, what is the problem, which job are they trying to achieve? And an example that I will go with, that I've actually validated with customer interviews, is software agencies who need to write software specifications over and over again, and it takes them lots of time to do it, and it's just a pain, etc. This was my general problem statement with a persona, with a problem, and the job they're trying to achieve is they try to close a customer and get a new gig, get a new project. Then what is important here is you try to segment your customers and identify your ICP. Who experiences the problem the most often or the most severe? So what is essential here is you have, and I will dig into this afterwards quickly, you have software agencies following with that case that don't write any software specifications. You have some that write them really often and really detailed and stuff like this. And then you try to find clear indicators that point towards the problem being larger or occurring more often, etc. A second aspect is who is willing to pay for it. A solo indie developer freelancer probably is more happy to just have a project and earn the money, so they don't really care about paying to get more demand and more projects through their pipeline. But larger scale software agencies maybe need to write lots of software specifications, and they think they could save money automating this to some sort. Then the next thing, who has less resistance to adopt a new solution, is also an important thing about an ICP. If you target someone or some company that will never adopt a different solution or different workflow than they currently have, you're not going to make a sale. So these are questions, and there are many more that can lead you to identify your ICP segment within a problem statement. One example I have here is with the software agency. So I'm Ralf Bolzhauser, founder of a small scale software agency. I'm self-employed, so it's only me for now. I have around 10 projects a year. Average project cost is 25K. Average project duration, 1 month. It's just some numbers I've made up partially. And based on this, I write like 20 specifications a year, and like half of the customers would take a project, and then actually I can close a deal. Then on the other hand, I have Robert Muck. It's just some made up persona. He's a CEO of an enterprise software agency, so he actually builds more software, he builds more projects, he has more employees, etc. And what you can see here now is the projects per year, the scale of the agency also indicates how many specifications they write a year, how often this problem occurs. And what you can see by this already is that I'm not probably the ICP for solutions like this, so it would be more like a mid to large scale software agency that could adopt this. So the next thing is reach out to your actual ICP and not friends. So what I can tell you about my way, how I did it first with this tool that I wanted to build, is I reached out to my friend Pearl, who owns a software agency, and she was really kind with me. She was excited about the idea. She wanted me to build a cool product, and she's always excited about new projects and startups anyways. So her feedback was really biased, and I mean, I'm glad she's kind with me, but it's not valuable to challenge my startup case and my ideas. So what's more important is to actually try to reach out to your ICP and not just friends. Even if your friends are your ICP, I still recommend to not do it because it highly biases yourself and your interview questions and answers to an aspect that it will force you to build something that shouldn't be built in the first place. As it did with me. I did like 3 to 4 interviews with friends that own software agencies, and all of them were super hyped about it. They were looking forward to it being built, but probably none of them actually needed it. So then there comes the second factor into play, actually reaching out to the ICP. And yes, for most of us, this is difficult and painful because we just want to build a cool product. We don't actually want to go on LinkedIn or whatever. But it's really essential because if you can't reach your ICP before your product is built, you're also not going to reach them after your product is built. There is no change. It's just you spending 3 months to build something that nobody cares in between, and then you being frustrated that nobody cares. So it's really essential to first talk to users. And you can ideate the product a little bit, that's totally fine, but in the interview, you don't want to pitch your idea anyways, but more on that later. So this guy would be the perfect person to interview because he's part of the ICP and he really doesn't care about anything. He doesn't care about me, whether my idea is good, whether it's a success, whatever. So one way to do this, I've made a little snippet here, is you could go on LinkedIn if it's a B2B case, and you could search for something that I have here, and then you can click on people, and you can click on all filters and go to locations. You can select the location that you're looking for example, United States or whatever. And then what you can see is you can quickly identify personas that would be in your ICP and people that are in your ICP that you don't know. And this helps a lot. So here what I did is I just searched for CEO, founder, CTO, and software agency. So now it gives me lots of results of people that are founder at an agency, founder in software, whatever. And it takes some time to click through these and see if they are actually a match. But it's really valuable. And then you can reach out to them, ask a few questions, ask them if they are willing to hop on a call with you and do a proper interview with you. Another way is also to just search for companies or people through Google and find their emails on websites and then just send them an email and be kind with them and ask them for a short meeting, be transparent that it will take 20 minutes or something, and then it's going to be fine. There are not lots of people responding, but it's a numbers game. Then another thing that's more relevant for B2C is that you're also focusing on platforms where your ICP actually spends time. if you want to find gamers and if you want to build a case about gamers, you're not going to find them on LinkedIn. You're also probably not going to find them on Facebook. So you always need to think first, where is my ICP actually spending their time? And what's important with those social media platforms is that you're really respecting the rules. If you just drop in some subreddits and just paste your idea or paste some market research questions, some interview questions or some survey, your post is going to delete it. No one wants to give you a favor and nobody likes you anymore. So what's important there is first spend time actually reading through the posts, commenting, asking for more detail or something like this, because people are already talking about their struggles. And if your struggle is appearing already on a post that exists before you got there, that's super valuable and a really great indicator. And what's great then is if some people are posting on a certain topic, is that you just drop them a DM and be transparent from the beginning that you are looking for some interviews. It's totally fine if they are not the one, and if they're ready to hop on a call with you or just answer some question, it's fine as well. But really respect the rules, because otherwise you're not making any progress. Then the next thing is actually doing the interviews the right way. So something that all of us are probably doing wrong in the beginning is you start with the idea. You're like, the interview starts and you're like, I have this idea. What do you think about it? Would you use it? What features do you want, etc. And this is the best way to bias the other person into not talking about their problems at all, only talking about your product and liking it and thinking it's cool. So in the end, you have a person that thinks, oh, this is cool, and they tell you it's cool, and then you end the call and you learned absolutely nothing. And you also bias them to be kind with you, because you tell them, I've worked on this, I've thought about this, please tell me you like it, right? Even if you don't state it, it's obvious that this is your goal. So this is really important, that you don't bias people and don't show your idea or product before the interview. What you want to do is you want to ask about past behavior and not about wants and wishes. So if people tell you, oh, I should do this and I want to do that, but I don't do it, this is often a bad indicator that you don't want to hear. And if you hear it, it's important to recognize it. That it might be something that people know they should do, but nobody actually does it. So if you help them do those kind of things, you're not helping them at all. So what you want to focus on is, what are biggest frustrations in regard to X? So actually digging deep into problems. And if the problem that you have in your hypothesis doesn't come up, that's fine. I already recommend dig into those problems even more that come up during the interviews, because often what you figure out is that you find patterns in those problems, and those are then indicators to make a pivot to those problems. Then also a great thing is to always ask about how often did you experience in the last month or something. Because if you just state, do you have this problem? Lots of people think, yeah, this sounds like a reasonable problem. I do have this sometimes. Yeah, when did you have it the last time? Yeah, I don't remember. And then when did you try to solve it the last time? I never tried to solve it. I just had the problem sometime. And suddenly, from do you have this problem? Yes, it becomes a person that really doesn't care about the problem. So it's really important to be really specific and clear with your questions, because there is worlds between a yes and a explained and specific yes to a great question. And what you also try to look for is people that try to solve a problem already with some workarounds, with some other tools, with other things, other ways, and they are just not quite happy with their current solution, or they didn't find a solution at all. But it is a problem for you if your audience, if your interviewee never even tried to solve the problem, because this indicates that it's not that important. Then the same thing goes into which tools do you currently use to achieve this, because it indicates they searched something, they found something, they are maybe already paying for something, and that's always a great indicator. One question I love to ask is, if you had a magic wand, what would you snap into existence? Like, what would you change? Because this gives the interviewee the freedom to really think about anything, and it states what they most care about. Because if you ask this question, and you can ask this question in many settings, it doesn't only have to be in customer interviews, people really tell you about things that are really important to them, but difficult. So many of you might be answering in this specific situation. They would say, if I had a magic wand, I would snap a startup case that people actually care about into existence. So this shows what you care about. You don't care about interview questions. You don't care about interview templates. You want a business case that works, right? And this immediately shows what is important to you. And often, and also in my case, what happened is the thing that they truly care about is really far off from what you're trying to solve. And that's okay, but it gives you a really great indicator in which direction you could go next. Who is involved in this process is really important as well, especially in B2B, but also sometimes in B2C cases, because it tells you about the stakeholders. Like, are you talking to the right person in the interview in the first place is something really important. And you want to know who is the decision maker. If you want to sell your product, who is involved in going through the buying process? Then who else do you think experiences this problem more than yourself is a great way to ask your interviewee about what they think is the ICP. And what's cool about this as well is this is great for messaging because they use their own words often to describe themselves. So they then talk about themselves basically, but they use their own words, their own messaging that you then can use for your landing page or your ads or something like this. Then quickly here, you want to be constantly checking yourself, doing things wrong, because interviews are hard. You will do things wrong. And part of this is proposing options during questions. When you ask an open-ended question, which is really important, and you feel uncomfortable in this moment, and then you just say something like this or that or blah, 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 and you're restricting the interviewee to your few options. Then again, asking about wants and woulds and not past behavior. This is really dangerous and really bad because all of your interviewees can tell you, I want this, I would use this, blah, blah, blah. And you think it's the perfect case. Everyone wants it. It's really needed. But if you would ask, how often did you have this problem? How often did you try to solve this problem? How often do you actually find a solution for this, etc.? Nobody actually cared or tried or whatever. And it's actually bad indicators. You were just asking the wrong questions. And then, again, talking about your idea and not asking about customer problems is fatal as well, because you bias them. You're not getting any value out of it if you just pitch your product. This is important at some point, not at this point. And then some things that come up often during interviews, or often, hopefully not, but sometimes, is, for example, feature requests. And sometimes your interviewee will figure out in which direction your product should go, and that's totally fine. What will happen at that point is they try to find a solution and ideate. They will say, I need this feature, I need that feature. And that's okay, that's not a problem, but you don't really want to have a feature request. You want to understand their problem. And you can redirect that feature request into a problem statement by just asking them, What problem do you hope to solve with that feature, with this request that you have? And like this, you can convert the request into digging into the problems even more. Then people that want to know your idea. This is something that will happen, of course, and all the time, is you will ask a question or two, or maybe you won't even get to ask a question, and they will start by asking, what's your idea? Tell me about your idea now. I can help you ideate your idea. I can help you way better if you tell me your idea. And you want to avoid this at all costs. Because once people know your idea, they try to be kind. They will answer in favor of your idea. The first thing they will respond with is, oh, that's cool. I think that's great. But if they didn't know about your idea and you ask, what problems do you currently face when doing blah, 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 they would have never mentioned the thing that you were looking for. As soon as they know your idea, they're biased to like it. And then last thing, which is totally fine, especially when reaching out to people through email, LinkedIn or Reddit or whatever, they say, I don't have time for this, or they are even a little bit more mean in phrasing this. And that's fine. They don't owe you anything. Nobody owes you anything that you can build your startup case and do market research, and that's fine. You don't want to bother these people. You can say, I understand, thank you. You can maybe write your most important or interesting question and say, I totally understand. If you find the time, feel free to answer this question or something like this. Nobody owes you anything. You will find enough people that will have time and that like to help you. You just need to contact some more and some others. And then, as mentioned before, what you don't want to hear is I would, I want, I should. What you also don't want to hear is I'm sure others will use this. This is something that I said myself plenty of times when doing customer interviews with other people and like being the interviewee myself. And it's really bad if you hear your interviewers say this, because this really means I don't need this. I just think your idea is cool. And again, the last one, it's cool. What you want to hear is I've got the problem. I tried finding solutions. I found solutions is even a better indicator than anything else. If they don't try to find solutions, nobody cares about your product. Then it's too tedious and annoying. Just if you can feel they're emotional about it, that's always great, because emotions drive behavior and action. And also if they start asking like, how does it work? Can I integrate it with this tool? Or can I invite my teammates, etc.? If they start thinking about actually using it and uncovering problems with your tool, then you know they switched from, oh, you have a cool tool, to would this actually work if I used it? And that's way better. And then the last step that is really important, take honest conclusions. If you learn from your interviews that nobody cares, that nobody has the problem and nobody wants what you want to build, that's okay, that's fine. But then actually don't build it, make a pivot, learn from the patterns that you've seen during the interviews and focus on something that people care. And you always need to be honest with yourself. Is this person biased to help me? Did I ask bad questions during the interviews? And it will happen all the time and it's okay, but you need to be honest with yourself, because you will quickly start lying to yourself with wrong data, and that's really dangerous. You will suddenly start saying, see, all those people said they like my idea and they would pay for it, etc. And it's all red flags. Your alarm bells should be ringing when you hear statements like this from yourself or from other people. So the question you need to ask yourself after a few interviews, and maybe a quick input here, how many interviews do I need to do? It's pretty easy. As soon as you don't learn anything anymore, then you can stop. In the beginning, each interview will give you new insights, new approaches, new ways, new tools, whatever, new learnings. And then most often by interview 10 or something, you start to get patterns and see the same thing over and over again, and then you can start taking conclusions. If you don't find anyone until your 5th interview that has your problem and cares about what you do, you either invalidated your hypothesis and it's wrong what you believed, or you're talking to the wrong people. So if no one has the problem or cares about what you try to solve, it's one of those. So to the conclusions that you need to consider is, does your ICP have the problem? Do they think the problem can and should be solved? There are also things that you can solve, but maybe they shouldn't be solved. One thing that I'm currently thinking of is like automating posting and ads and sales and stuff like this with AI. There are lots of cases, but I'm sure there are plenty of people, plenty of customers that think this shouldn't be solved. Yes, it's tedious to do it by hand, to write your LinkedIn post by hand, etc. But plenty of people also think, I want to do this myself. I want it to be authentic. I want it to be honest and true. And just AI generating it is not a problem I want to solve. Then, did they try to find solutions for this? This is not a super hard requirement, but it's a great indicator. So if someone tried to find solution for this in any matter, either by building a system for themselves, by using Excel, by asking ChatGPT, by Googling for it, by buying a subscription for another SaaS tool, whatever, it's always a great indicator, because if people go out of their way to find a solution, they have a problem. And then, are there other constraints that prevent this problem from being solved? This is important in terms of stakeholders, regulations, and other things. If you have a case that you think, why hasn't anyone built this? This is so great. This needs to be a thing. It's so easy. It's probably because you don't have the answer to your question yet, but there is an answer. So you should dig into other projects that try to do similar things, competitors, whatever, or literally just ask your customer, like, what prevents you from solving this problem? And they will maybe have an answer to that you cannot do anything about it. And once all those lights are green, you build a prototype. I will create another video about this later, what you should include there, what is important there, what is the goal of building the prototype, because it's not building your finished solution yet. You don't want to just after 5 interviews spend months building your finished product. That's not good. That's not the idea. But you want to learn the most you can. That's the goal of the prototype. And if any lights are red enough so you don't build the prototype, then you can be proud of yourself. You did the customer interview process the right way. You didn't fool yourself. You didn't say, yeah, this will be fine. You didn't say, oh, they said it's cool, so I will build it. You were honest. You asked the right questions, and you identified that the thing you wanted to do is not really a thing that is important. And that's really, really great, because now you can pivot to something else, or you can just quit and buy and build something completely different and validate the next thing. Because what you don't want to do is build something again that nobody cares about. And one great way to pivot here is that you actually identify recurring problems in your ICP and then focus on this, because this is a problem of actual people that you've identified during the interviews, which is a great start. If you don't find any recurring problems, your niche of ICP, of people you're talking to, is probably too broad. If you talk to the same people over and over again, and you ask some of the questions that I've told you before, you almost always will identify recurring problems. So if you don't, you probably talk to two groups that are too different from each other. So this is some things you can consider. And no matter which of these are the actual outcome, you succeeded with your customer interviews. Because the goal is not to build a prototype. If you want to build a prototype, you can start today. You don't need to do interviews because interviews are painful. The goal of interviews is to actually figure out you shouldn't have built it, or figuring out that you should build something different. And the last thing I want to show and say is on Zenvias, the tool I'm using right now, I've created this customer interview template that I use myself for the cases that I validate, also with some tips during the interview, like you should smile, you should stop talking, etc., that you can just duplicate, use for yourself, adjust, and so on. And you can really use this as a worksheet and get started with your interviews. And this is how you stop building products nobody wants. And I'm hopefully one of the guys that can now stop building products nobody wants. Thank you.